Fritz Meyer, it is great to have you with us. I think you're going to come up and there you are in real life. Wonderful.
Yeah, great to be with you, although it would be better to be there in person.
Oh, yes, it would be, let me assure you. You kindly had Ryan and I participate in your first Denver Democracy Summit, which is a sister event to this one here in Copenhagen. You've been listening today, and I wondered what your big takeaways are.
Well, let me say first what a pleasure it is to be with everyone today, and let me thank you, Jeanne and Ryan, and especially Anders for the partnership that we've had in Denver in February, and we'll again have next February when we hope to be in person. Invite all of you to be there in Denver in February. Yes, I've been listening all day. Wow, what a rich, inspiring, really riveting set of presentations. It makes it challenging to summarize, to be honest, but an extraordinary collection of personal stories, of inspirational stories, of thoughtful presentations. A few thoughts. One is just the urgency of the moment. We've been talking. This is now the fourth Copenhagen Summit. Of course, it's been obvious for some time that democracy was in trouble. But even compared with last year, even compared in some ways with February, there's an urgency to the situation that is, I think, ever more evident. We see this in the data that was presented earlier in the day, obviously in the stories of what is happening in Myanmar and Hong Kong and Belarus and Ukraine. You hear the looming, ever-growing presence of China and the pressures that it is putting on the international system, to some extent also Russia, of course, complex issues around the media, freedom of expression, and a host of other challenges. And there's a sense in which this is an urgent, crucial moment. Referencing back to Anders' opening statement, that's the pessimistic side of things. But the other thing you hear, and that I find so encouraging about this conversation and the others that are taking place, is there is an awakening to the problem. We're no longer complacent in the way that we were, as referenced actually several times today, the idea that all we needed to do was develop economically and democracy would follow. Well, we're not complacent anymore. And, when you can't solve a problem until you name it. And I think we've named it, and there's a growing consensus that it is a problem. And what you're seeing at multiple levels is an awakening and engagement on the problem. At the global level, the Alliance of Democracies, the ideas that the democracies of the world need to come together through this forum, through the Biden forum that's coming up, and many of this talks today, emphasizing the need for the democracies to come together to address the state of democracy, economic inequality, and a host of other issues, the need for international cooperation. And that's a hopeful thing. And the other thing that is just always, it's really just inspiring. I'm really humbled listening to the courage, the bravery, the persistence of activists in civil society around the world in very dangerous circumstances, in very difficult places. When you hear Nathan Law or Wai Nu, or all of those who are putting literally their lives on the line to fight for democracy, we're reminded that there's an enduring hunger for democracy, and that there are people all over the world now engaged in this fight. And I think also called for all of us who are privileged not to be in such difficult circumstances, called to act, to support them. But that's encouraging. That's the encouraging side of things to me, this awakening that is happening. And of which this event is an important part of this, the conversations that are taking place today at the summit. And then I can't help sitting here in the U.S. but reflect briefly on the U.S. role in this. We have been at best on the sideline over the last 4 years, And it is encouraging that we are rejoining the conversation, rejoining the efforts, the international efforts. Of course, as has been said, and it's terribly important that we lead by example, that we get our own house in order. And we certainly have our challenges here in the United States. It's crucial, of course, that we demonstrate that we can be an effective functioning democracy. To some extent, the world is watching us and other democracies to see whether we can solve problems of economic opportunity for our citizens or the challenges of climate change. I thought the presentation on Taiwan is encouraging. Here's a democracy that did cope with COVID well, is doing well. Very important that we get our house in order. And of course, as we just heard, it's important that the U.S. re-engage with the world and do so, though, with humility, that we are partners with others, all the other countries, the other democracies, that we are supporters of the activists and the community of a remarkable community of actors in the civil society who are doing so many brave things to advance democracy. A challenge for all of us, a challenge for the U.S. It's easy to be pessimistic given all the trends, but I do think it's a hopeful moment as well. I look forward to continuing this conversation in February at our second Democracies Summit. These are rich topics. I congratulate Anders, you and the Alliance of Democracies for this fabulous program today and all the great work you're doing. And again, it's an honor to be partnered with you and to be with all of you today.
Fritz Meyer, Dean of the Josef Korbel School of International Studies at the University of Denver. Thanks so much.
Now, Anders, you brought us the hope in the morning, but I'm going to ask you to bring us the homework to close out the evening. A lot of challenges outlined by the speakers today. What do we in the room and everyone watching online need to do to now deliver the support that they've been asking for?
Yeah, thank you very much. I started optimistic, and now I'm even more optimistic. And I have three main takeaways, I would say. First of all, I think it's crucial that we stand up and defend free speech. We devoted a panel to Samuel Paty, the French teacher who was beheaded, because he exercised his right to free speech. But I think it's important to understand that very often we are speaking about state actors when we're speaking about democracy and freedom. But we were reminded that freedom is not only threatened by authoritarian states, but also by individuals, fanatics, who want to suppress the free speech. And we should remember that free speech, that's not only the right to get rid of an outdated government, but it's also the right to get rid of outdated ideas. And that is a prerequisite for development, for renewal of our society. So that's why my first takeaway is, let's stand up for free speech. It's the most precious civil right we have. Now, my second takeaway is that it is time to act. It's time to act to protect freedom, to support the champions of democracy. I was heartened to see political leaders from Taiwan, through Myanmar, Belarus, to Venezuela, tell their stories and appeal for our help. I think we should stand up and accommodate their appeal for help and let words follow by deeds. Will it have consequences? Undoubtedly. But we cannot let profit trump principles. And we heard which price is paid by people who insist on free speech, on their democratic rights. There are values on which we cannot compromise: life and liberty. My third takeaway is that this conference day has just demonstrated the need to create an alliance of democracies. And we have learned how important American leadership is in that respect. So I appreciate very much that President Biden, following his speech in Copenhagen 2018, has pledged to organize and host a global summit for democracy later this year. I hope that we, in cooperation with our friends at Denver University, can provide inputs to that summit, because the voice of civil society is of utmost importance. So I started in a positive manner. I would leave today in a very positive manner. And I think we have now come to conclude our conference. So I would take this opportunity to thank all our partners, our sponsors, staff at the Playhouse who has been very helpful, our volunteers that have helped us through the day, the staff in the Alliance of Democracies Foundation, and last but definitely not least, Jeanne and Ryan for leading us in a very professional manner through this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anders. I think we would agree that it's been a real privilege for us to be here and have these conversations. So thank you very much.
Thank you.